Hi, scholars and parents. This is Ms. Palmer. I am going to go over some helpful hints for homework 7 and 8. This is your review homework for your unit assessment, which is on Friday. I am not going to do any of these problems because this is a review assignment and I want you to get all of the practice. And you will have an opportunity to ask questions in math class on Friday during the first block of math. But I am going to go through all of the pages and give you a few reminders and helpful hints. So for number 1, it asks you to draw the number 3 5/100. It wants you to draw it in this place value chart here. I want to remind you that when we say draw it, we mean use base 10 blocks. This represents 1 whole. These represent tenths. They're called rods. And these represent hundredths. They are called units. Please use these drawings in order to represent the number. Next hint. Question number 2 says, draw a place value chart that includes hundreds, tens, ones, tenths, hundredths, and thousandths. So you're going to draw a place value chart, and you're going to have 2 digits to the left of your decimal place and 3 digits to the right of your decimal place. You should be able to fill in those blanks and then put this number on the place value chart. Question number 3 asks you to plot numbers on a number line. So these numbers, 2.3 and 2.7, or 2 3/10 and 2 7/10. So you're plotting tenths. And remember that when you plot tenths, it needs to fall between 2 whole numbers. So that means the ends of your number line are going to be whole numbers. In this case, 2 3/10 is greater than 2. So that is going to be one of your whole number endpoints. And 2 7/10 is less than 3. That's going to be your other whole number endpoint. So you should be able to fill in the remaining labels and then put X's at 2 3/10 and 2 7/10. For number 4, you do exactly the same thing, except for you're plotting 56 hundredths. So hundredths, if you were to use this number line, you would if you were to put whole numbers as your endpoints, you would have to have 100 dashes in between, because hundredths means that it's a whole divided into 100 pieces. Instead, we want you to use this number line that's divided into 10 pieces. So that means that your endpoints have to be tenths. You have to decide which tenth is less than 56 hundredths and which tenth is greater than 56 hundredths. Go ahead and try that one on your own. Number 5 is a riddle. It says, I have 13 tenths, 2 ones, and 21 hundredths. What's the number? So my hint here is to draw it first. And by drawing it, I mean use base 10 blocks and put it on a place value chart. Then I also want you to remember that it takes 10 hundredths to make 1 tenth. And it takes 10 tenths to make 100. Question number 6. Question number 6 asks you to represent 2 39 hundredths in a variety of ways. First, to draw it using these blocks. I want to remind you that each of these blocks represents 1 whole, and the whole is cut into 100 pieces, or hundredths. So 1 column from top to bottom has 10 hundredths, and that is the same as 1 tenth. So each column represents 1/10. Takes 10 hundredths to make a tenth, and it takes 10 tenths to make a whole. When you write it in word form, you need to remember to first say the whole number, then say and. Whenever you see the decimal point, that's when you say and. Then you just say the name of the number that comes to the right of the decimal point. And then finally, you say the name of the last place value. In this case, the last place value is hundredths. Fraction form you should be familiar with. Expanded form is when you write each place value separately in decimal form. And then fraction notation is when you start with the whole number and then you say how many tenths there are, how many hundredths, and how many thousandths as a fraction. On to number 7. Number 7, we're shading thousandths on this chart. So each of these squares represents one whole, and it is divided into 1,000 pieces, or thousandths. So in that case, each column would represent 1/100th, because there are 10 columns, and it takes 10 hundredths. I'm sorry. It takes 10 hundredths. Gotten myself all confused. There are 10 in each of these little squares, and there are 100 in each column. 100 times 10 gives you 1,000, which is why there are 1,000 little squares in this box. So this is a whole divided into thousandths. There are 10 in the small squares, and there are 100 in the larger columns. Question number 8. Question number 8 is asking you to move numbers on the place value chart. Wants you to rewrite 8 and 907 thousandths so that the 7 is 100 times the value of the 7 in the original number. So first, I want you to draw it on the place value chart. Then I want you to remember that when you move to the left on the place value chart, the numbers get bigger. Each time you move over a place value to the left, it is by multiplying by 10. When you move to the right on the place value chart, the numbers get smaller. Each time you move to the right, it's like dividing by 10 or multiplying by 1/10. You have to figure out where that 7 will end up if you make it 100 times greater. For number 9, the number is given to you in word form, 360 and 89 hundredths. That's the number. And you need to figure out how to make the 3 1/1000th the value. 1/1000th is definitely going to get smaller moving to the right. And you can think of it as 1/10 times 1/10 times 1/10, because 10 times 10 times 10 gives you 1,000. On page 5, it's asking you to compare the value of the digits. The steps to remind you how to compare the value of digits are included on the page for you. And then finally, page 6. On page 6, you are going to round. You're going to round numbers. So the first thing that I want to remind you is the place value chart, because it's going to tell you to round to the 10th. It's going to tell you to round to the ones. It's going to tell you to round to the hundredths, all those different things. You have to remember the order of the place value chart. Here, moving from left to right, we have hundreds, tens, ones, then the decimal point jumps in there. It's not a place value, but it always is in the same place. Then tenths, and then hundredths. Thousandths come after that. Just add them in. So starting left to right, hundreds, tens, ones, tenths, hundredths, thousandths. Make sure you can remember the order of the place value so that you know which digit they're talking about when they say the tenths place, which digit they're talking about when they say the hundredths place. Second thing I want to remind you is that whichever digit you're rounding to, so in this case the tenths, in this case the hundredths, you need to underline that digit. So write out the number and then underline the digit. Then you need to do an arrow to the next digit over. The next digit over to the right. That's the digit you're going to use to decide if you round up or if you round down. If that number is 5 or more, then you add 1 to the underlined digit. If it is 4 or less, then the underlined digit stays the same, but everything else becomes a 0 after that. Okay. Good luck on your review packet. If you have specific questions as you go, you should write them down. Your teachers will not be as available tonight as normal because it is parent-teacher conferences. So we are with parents until 7 o'clock, but you can call us after 7. Good luck, and we look forward to your questions on Friday. Thank you.